What do you think is the biggest issue that farmers face? Cost of fertilizer, feed, drought? Yep, those are all major issues. But theft, Praedial larceny, you put in your hard work and somebody come and reap up your crops? Ooh, that is definitely among the top issues. I'm Kalila Reynolds, and it's time for another episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. My guest today is Jason McKay. He's CEO of McKay Security. He'll be telling us how to combat farm theft. Hi, Jason. It's nice to meet you in person this time.
Yeah, it's so much better than looking on a screen.
Tell me about your experience in the security industry.
Well, I've been in here a long time. My father was in the business too for many years, so I grew up in it. And then my entry into it was actually through the coffee plantation and so on. I started to secure them. And then soon after, I was very involved with anti-squatting activity in the tourist zones. I worked very closely with Danny Melville, so soon after that I ended up came on as racetrack in '96, and then soon after that I was securing the KFCs, and I've been going right through for the last almost 30 years now.
But securing the coffee plantation is really where we want to start here for this episode of Money Moves JA, because so many people have farms, so many small farmers have farms, they put in all this work into their crop, into their livestock, all this investment, and then boom, somebody come and thief it. So how do you secure your farm?
It's very difficult and very expensive. And it depends, agriculture is diverse. How you secure a coffee plantation, totally different from how you secure livestock, how you secure, cash crops and so on. So cane is something that, people don't really hit it as much as they hit the oranges. So it all depends on the crop there is no one single answer to how you would secure a plantation, because your farm can be a coffee farm, which there's a formula for that. Your farm can also be livestock and so on, which there's a formula for that. Totally different formula for securing oranges versus cane. And the lack of fencing makes it, has its own dynamic and so on, And the cost of security is high. Cost of labor in general is high. So you'd have to be more specific, How do you secure, let's say, a cash crop like oranges or coffee? The idea is that, because it's hardly ever fenced, is that you actually have to put the security team into the crops.
So they have to hide out in the trees? Well,
they move around throughout the farm, but not on the roads, not in the clubhouse, not in the farmhouse.
They need to be actually in the farm.
Crops. If they're securing the fish farms, then they need to be where the pond is. And that is the problem.
People thief the fish from the fish farm?
Hard, man. They really take a terrible blow. I'm not sure that sentencing for Praedial larceny is high enough. I think it's something the government has to really take seriously, not just for the fact that it destroys what somebody else has worked for, but when they decide to take matters into their own hand, then I've seen it take a very bad turn. I saw there were some guys in Old Harbour that were being plagued by the goat thieves, and when they responded, 4 people were killed.
Yeah.
And 2 of the 4 were innocent people. So you have to be extremely careful about how Praedial larceny is treated. If it's treated as a slap on the wrist, the farmers are going to do a lot more than slap on the wrist themselves, and that is, you almost send them underground at that point, because most farms can't afford to go to a security company and hire guards and go through all of that. It has to be a pretty large business to do that. Your small farm, it's almost impossible to say that you can find a solution to do it, because it's small, it doesn't mean it's your backyard. It's acres of land, and I think it is almost choice of crop at that point. If you're going to have a small farm and you're going to have acres around your home, then you have to perhaps choose a crop that is not as inviting for theft.
Like what?
Picking that one, it tends to be the problem because a lot of crops that are small, that persons can farm in small plots like tobacco and so on. People don't really target tobacco like they will target pepper, like they will target oranges, Like they will target goats.
Yeah, because orange easy just go and pick it.
Right, and the one tree can give you a pretty good yield, and it's very easy to sell it. Not quite as easy to sell tobacco. You know, even things like vanilla, you know, and so on. It's extremely high price on the market, and it takes a lot to get that little piece of vanilla where it's supposed to be, you know, when somebody just walks in and take it, just like the coffee. So you have to select, if you're not able to do the type of operation like a banana plantation where you can pay for vehicles and security teams and all of that, then you have to now pick a crop that is not as easy. It can't be sold like a convenience good.
But when it comes to the animals, I've heard of the tagging. Is that effective?
To some degree.
And how expensive is it?
Not significant.
Yeah.
Not significant. And there is it is effective to some degree. But I would say that it's the persons who are hit with the attack on livestock tend to be small farmers. And they most of the time don't tag. And they may have 10, 12 goats, you know. It's not that they have that many goats. And you come and they're all gone, you know. So those are the guys that are really feeling it, you know.
Terrible, man. It's a really serious problem.
It is, but what needs to be done is you have to factor in the risk when you're getting into the business. So you can't. I remember when I first went, you know, onto a coffee plantation, there had never been a security company there before. So therefore, there was no budget in place for the security company when it got there. Because previously you had the ranger and the watchmen and so on and so forth. That's not a real security solution. But nobody really budgets for two things, security and the mechanic. You know, you never budget for your car to break down. You never budget for your security need. And that's usually the first thing a company cuts when they're trying to cut down on their expenses. The security goes first. In agriculture, you can't approach it like that. Or you're gonna, because every cow you lose, every goat you lose, every pound of crop you lose, you're losing it straight off of the bottom line, you know?
So very important to budget for your security.
You have to budget for security, and if you're going to have larger farms and so on, you're going to bring in security, you have to get away from this concept of keeping the security at one point and the crops at another point. And because there's so many ways they can enter those fields, but so often you go onto these plantations to do a consultancy, and you know nobody's actually factoring in that the guards need to be in the midst of the crops. You know, and there are certain crops that don't allow for that. If you have crops that are on vines and so on, you can't have people trampling around.
Right.
So that comes with its own issue. But if it's something like oranges or coffee, you actually have to insert the guards into the actual fields where it is.
Is fencing effective?
But too costly. Farming by its very nature uses a lot of land. Fencing a lot of land is just not cost effective.
Right.
If you have that much money to fence 300-400 acres of land, you probably could put it somewhere better than in the plant, into agriculture. You know?
All right. So what about security cameras?
They have their place. To me, I think they're a bit overrated. I think they're a very good investigative tool. But I think when you put cameras in, you're looking for movement and so on. It can assist because then you know where to respond to. So in obvious cases like fish farms, if you have the movement sensors around. But you see, there's a lot of things moving around at night that set off cameras, rats, owls, cockroaches, stuff the movement sensors pick up on too. So most of the time you're not responding to a real threat. You know, and then you know, the way these guys dress, identification is very difficult, especially for the purpose of a court situation where persons are charged, evidentially speaking. You can't really use that to go to court on it, and so you even have a challenge to identify who it is, even if you know it. You know, because he's covered in a hat, he has on a mask, and he has a fabric around his face, and so on. So evidentially it doesn't give you much, but it's a good investigative tool. The reality is that if it's a big enough farm, you could be responding all night to movement lights coming on and so on, you know. And then also the infrastructural cost of that type of camera could be expensive as well. You know, it's just like people speak about going solar. Nobody really thinks about the amount of money it costs to go solar. The same thing with cameras. They say, you know, get some good cameras. It costs a lot of money to get good cameras, especially when you're going to put them over acres and acres of land, you know.
And to be able to see at night.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you know. But and you use lighting and so on. Where the lights come on because of movement and all
Right.
of that. But then they're coming on all night because of the mongoose and the rats and everything else that is there, you know. So I'm a big fan of having a man on the ground versus a piece of wire, you know. So I don't think I think it can contribute to a security solution, but I don't think cameras in an agricultural setting is a final solution.
Two main things I take away: budget for your security
Budget for
and
it.
put your security team in the fields among
the
the
field,
crops.
right.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jason. How can people reach out to you for your expertise?
McKay Security, just Google us. We're right there. You know, we're willing to come to your farm. We're willing to assist you in finding a solution, and we're realistic with it. You know, we won't come in there and say, well, you need 14 jeeps and 140 guards, because we know it's just not cost effective. We do have a different solution for every problem, and if there is no reasonable solution, we'll tell you that also. But we're easy to find. You can just Google us and we're right there, McKay Security.
All right. Thanks again, Jason. All the best.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Here's a recap of Dr. McKay's key points. Securing your crops and livestock can be very expensive, so make sure to budget for security. Putting security in the field to guard your crops is absolutely necessary when you have crops that are high demand. If you cannot pay for a high level of security, then consider picking a crop that is not usually targeted by thieves. Praedial larceny should be treated as a serious offense.
That's it for this episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. Visit their website at eximbankja.com and follow them all over social media at eximbankja. You can find a summary of this episode on my website, KalilaReynolds.com. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Till next time.